T-14 Armata. Russia's new next-generation main battle tank. The massive, new, modern tank outclasses and outmatches everything that stands before it. It is by far the best tank in the Russian arsenal, and absolutely hits like a monster. The T-14 is arguably Russia's most famous tank of the modern era, challenging the venerable T-72 and T-90 in fame. But does the T-14 deserve all its hype? Is it worth all the shit people are talking about it? Does the tank truly match head-to-head with the mighty Abrams? No, it doesn't. The T-14 is an absolute failure of design, and probably one of the most ironic designs I have ever seen in a modern era. You'll see what I mean later. The T-14 was introduced in 2014, shortly after the first Russian invasion of Ukraine, where they took Sevastopol. Due to the poor performance of Russia's tanks the poor performance of Russian tanks in the Chechenian wars, Russia needed a new modern tank. They announced in that time frame the brand new T-14 family of vehicles, a series of vehicles so ironic that it makes the Great Northern War look like a Dr. Seuss publication. Let's start with nitpicking the T-14 family first. We have the autoloader. Now, the T-14's autoloader is admittedly a step forward in Russian design, replacing the T-72's carousel autoloader system, the same system that sends Russia's turrets kicking through the air like the kick can every time it's hit, with a French-style cartridge autoloader with a rear-mounted ammunition compartment and blow-out panels to protect the crew. However, the autoloader does have one huge problem: jamming. The autoloader has frequent jamming issues, and this is only compounded by the fact that the turret is not accessible. So when the gun does jam, it has to return to the forward operating base or the factory to be unjammed. By comparison, the M1 Abrams has a human loader, which can unjam the gun in about 5 seconds. The gun does also have a problem of being too slow, so much so that a rival M1A2 could easily pop off 2 shots before the T-14 fully reloads. Yeah, here comes the funniest part about the T-14 in my opinion. It makes use of a modified version of the German SLA-16, a modified version of the Porsche Tiger's engine, the infamously unreliable Tiger tank. Well, sibling to the Tiger tank. So, to get this straight, Russia's new next-generation tank makes use of a Nazi engine, and on the day it is presented, it is shown in a parade meant to celebrate Russia's victory over Nazi Germany in World War II. Why? How on earth did the inventors at Ural even come up with this? What kind of alcohol were they drinking? Vodka? It's almost like the morons at the Russian design office just got all drunk and started slapping random shit together. Now, you're probably thinking simple solution would be to change the engine, but after all, the Abrams can do so quite easily. If its Honeywell gas turbine engine ever jams, it can replace it with a diesel one. But here's the problem. The T-14 family is built around the SLA-16. No other engine fits in the T-14, and in order to replace it, that tank would need a near-total redesign, which I don't think I have to tell you is insanely expensive. The tank should have made use of the venerable V2 engine, although for now, as like a poster boy or like a test bed, I get it, it's an old-ass engine, and it's a really bad one, but it would at least get the T-14 moving. And they could at least look in creating a better one while they were at it. But not only was it in a high supply, not only is it a high supply, but many other Russian tanks already mount the same engine. So therefore, if needed, the T-14 crews could cannibalize other tanks for parts when needed. When they inevitably break down. The T-14's engine is very unreliable, as previously stated. Not helped by the fact that its original purpose was to power oil plants and infrastructure, not heavy vehicles. So, surprise, surprise, when the T-14 was first showed, on a practice red parade in Moscow, it broke down. Surprise, surprise. Maybe that's why that's why you don't put an unreliable engine into a 56-ton vehicle. Logic. I mean, just why? I mean, then there's the part that nobody talks about. It's the Armata's modular design. Now, modularity is basically when you're able to interchange something or improve upon something. It's like I could take this pen and I could also use the pen to erase. No, bad example. I could take this helmet, I could wear it on my head to protect me from shrapnel. I could also cook with it. And it's just general. It's supposed to be interchangeable. It can be used differently. Now, the T-14 is part of a family of vehicles. And if this includes armored personnel carriers, anti-aircraft guns, air support, close air support, just a whole bunch of different things. Now, the problem is fuel consumption. Tanks are big, heavy, and very, very thirsty. Now, let me just list a few examples of interchangeable vehicles, and I want you to compare them to the T-14. The M113 Armored Personnel Carrier, the CV-90, and the HIMARS. Now, what's the difference between here and the T-14? Now, these are all light vehicles. They will all be far behind the line, so they don't need to be armored. If something is armored, it wastes fuel. And the problem is not having access to the fuel, it's actually getting it where it needs to be. As a general rule, fuel depots are very explosive. And since the Russians can't just concentrate all the fuel in one place, because that just generally tempts the HIMARS of fate. Yeah. So what ends up happening is that you're just going to have an entire army out of fuel, dead, and just dead to rights. It would be the Moscow convoy all over again. And the T-14 would only make this problem worse. Now, I would understand if the T-14 family was used when its inevitable replacement will come along, and it will be replaced in future. Same way how the T-34 would eventually be replaced by T-54 and T-44, my bad. Every tank will get replaced. The Abrams will get replaced. The Leopard is being replaced, I think, by the KF-51 Panther. I don't know if they're meant to fight alongside each other or replace each other. But it's just simple terms. Everything will be replaced, and eventually so will the Armata. Now, that would understand if you're able to strip armor away. Just, if you're able to strip armor away, then you won't need, like, you don't have to toss the T-14s on the scrap heap. You can eventually reuse them to fight alongside your more modern vehicles. Now, that's that's fine, but it seems like they're planning on doing this right now. And while this will lessen the amount of different parts and factories that the Russians have to use to build material, it'll also mean that Russian fuel depots will be crowded, very crowded, and easy targets. I mean, I doubt Russia will end up ever fighting NATO. Like, they have no reason to, and clearly they cannot win, and they never could have at any point in their relationship dynamic. But yeah, it's just really as simple. Moving on. Another thing I have peeved about the T-14's design is, well, it's confusing layout. Now, the three-man crew, admittedly, apparently has a toilet. I only got this from one source. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it'd be kind of useful so the crew doesn't have to get out. But, yeah. The turret design, in my opinion, is, while it's being a step forward in terms of its autoloader, they do need to improve the speed of the autoloader, or else it's just going to be too vulnerable. The Armata would have to basically hit and just beg and hope the enemy doesn't actually notice them before moving on, which great for war games like War Thunder. Which, yes, maybe the T14 might eventually appear at some point in War Thunder. I don't think, not right now, because it hasn't been introduced, probably as a premium. But then, moving on, the layout of the sights, I mean, the driver uses a periscope sight, which means it's heavily vulnerable to everything. No matter how tough you make the glass, it's still glass at the end. It'll be vulnerable to everything. And same with all the gunner and the commander. They have digital sights, but the problem is if those digital sights go down, they have nothing. They can't see. And since they don't have a turret to pop into so they can direct the driver, they're just blind. Add on to that, the Armata seems pretty vulnerable, just to everything. A Bradley would probably deal with it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the tow missile. Oh yeah, the defense systems don't work. They just don't. It's just smokescreen, and they can't detect when a missile's been fired at them. Oh boy. Now, admittedly, the T-14 is probably a step forward for Russia, I guess, finally breaking with Soviet-era doctrine. However, it does not make up for the fact that the design is a total failure. However, the theory behind the T-14 is a sound one. Could be then turned into the next generation tanks. As an example, the brand new Abrams X, America's next generation main battle tank, which may see the adoption in probably the mid-2020s, possibly early 30s, because we just don't need it yet. It's currently only a demonstration vehicle, so I don't think we actually need it. I mean, we don't have any opponents, and it's not looking like there's going to be any major ground war where we're going to need it, but this isn't a threat to justify producing these brand new designs like the Challenger 3, just everything. They are expensive, and just like the F-22, they don't have a war to fight. As much as people are scared, I doubt the Ukraine war will expand into a world war. There are countless reasons as to why, and I won't get into it, but I'll just dumb it down to a simplified explanation. Nobody can afford to go to war with the United States. War with the United States is not only unwinnable, but it'll also devolve into a knockdown, drag-out conflict for decades, crippling the global economy, and finally nations are just so interconnected, international war just isn't profitable anymore, except for just a handful of people. War is indeed a scary thing, and I believe we should do everything we can to prevent it. We aren't bad people, we're all only human. We should unify, love each other, and live in a democracy where we live as equals. Black people, white people, LGBTQ, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, and any other group. I'll just leave it with a quote. Love thy neighbor. Anyways, this has been a rather long script and annoying script to write. Much longer than my usual videos, I think. I don't know. I haven't checked out the runtime yet. Please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell every time I upload. I'm Crimson Snow, and this has been a video.